What's up, everybody? So, Francis, did we talk about your weekend?
We glanced over it. we talked about how I saw some familiar faces, which we won't get into. Some people that used to work at this company and ran into them at unlikely bars. But that's just what happens. It's LA. It's a big city, but it's relatively small in comparison to like what you think.
Right. LA is a place that is just filled with ex-girlfriends, and some of them are just co-workers, but they feel like ex-girlfriends, even though even some of them are men.
I feel like that and goes in with the story and implies that I had an ex-girlfriend at the company because of the way I set up. That's not true.
No.
I didn't have an ex-girlfriend.
No.
Just to clarify, in case my current girlfriend is
I know
watching the
Mrs.
clip.
Maxwell. She's very sweet.
I'm not going to do what the guy did on the interview where he says he wants to thank his girlfriend.
I want to thank my wife. I want to thank my wife and my girlfriend. I mean, I just love my wife so much, and my daughter. I call my daughter my girlfriend sometimes.
Yeah,
it's a joke. It's a joke between us because she's so beautiful.
That is just that. And by the way, I was like, if that's your excuse, that's creepy.
That's right. That's all. You might have made a bad situation worse.
Yeah.
Which is impressive. I played Horizon Zero Dawn all weekend.
How was that?
It's great, man. That's a fun video game.
But you also
I did go out, and I also watched the Clippers. So, look, Dan's not here, and Dan would get very upset with me. Our executive producer is a season ticket holder for the Clippers. He's got great seats, so I have to beat around the bush and be nice about certain things with him because
very good seats.
I like those tickets. But if we're being honest here, the Clippers are the only team in basketball who could beat the Jazz really handily. A team that is so stringent on defense. Rudy Gobert, arguably first. I have him on my first All-NBA team as the center. Some people's second All-NBA team. Gordon Hayward having a career year. A team that is not the most exciting. They're like a more defensive-minded Spurs. So it's already not the sexiest basketball. Then combine that with even less sexy basketball. It's the Kevin James of basketball. So that's what we have.
How did you get Kevin James?
I don't know. I saw the King of Queens commercial. It's not the King of Queens anymore. It's like Brooklyn Apartment B. What's the Kevin Can Wait.
Kevin Can Wait. Do you know the funny thing that I was about to make?
You were
the point?
watching?
No, I was about to make the point is they all sound the same because they all are the same.
They are the same.
He continuously makes other things that are the same as the things that he's already done. He's like the Jason Statham of TV. Like Jason Statham will never be in a character that he's not like, I'm going to fucking beat shit out of this guy.
Oh, I was gonna say Jason Statham can't do a character where he's not like, I'm gonna beat the shit out of this guy and then drive away really fast.
Transporter, Crank, they're all the same guy.
Italian Job, he's gotta drive.
Yeah, but he's well just making his character the same in every movie. Like have an ongoing theme that he just makes it into all these scenarios. Don't fix it. He's making way more money than I can ever imagine.
But so they beat the Jazz 108-95, and this is a Jazz team who I think is going to beat the Clippers in the playoffs in the first round. But if they don't, they'll move on to the second round and get absolutely demolished by the Warriors, just like the Warriors have been doing for 10 straight wins, 12 straight wins possibly. But the Kings. Now, Chris Paul's answer to how they blow an 18-point lead with 5 minutes left was, man, we lost. And that's a totally acceptable answer. But I simply don't understand who the hell to blame. It's a team thing at this point. So, first of all, at the Knicks game that I was at, I watched the Clippers with roughly the same 18-point lead with a little bit more time, 8 minutes left. The Knicks starters come out, they put in their reserves. Ron Baker, undrafted out of Wichita State, belongs at the YMCA, not on an NBA court, but played pretty well. Hernan Gomez, which I can never pronounce correctly, another guy who came over from Europe, all people that really won't be making rosters possibly next year. Hernan Gomez has been great, don't get me wrong. And the reserves climb back to make it a 7-point deficit against the Clippers. So it's not like this is news, or it shouldn't be news to anybody that the Clippers can't close. We've talked about this for years now. And it's one of their biggest problems, which was they're up 3-1 against the Rockets, and the Rockets stormed back to make the Western Conference Finals, and that was a Rockets team that's not even half as good as this one now. I think part of it is they can't get over the fact that even with depth, and part of it I think is falling down on Doc Rivers' X's and O's. I do. I think if we have to put some focus on something, it should be that Doc isn't either motivating the players enough to want to put their foot on the gas late games, because I'm not going to give the Kings a ton of credit here. Yeah, Buddy Hield hit some big threes and hustled and played hard, and Cauley Stein ran the floor. Don't get me wrong in that comeback. but this was a Clippers collapse, not a Kings comeback.
With any team that you know has a weakness, other teams will use it as their strength consistently. So what I see with the Clippers is no matter how big their deficit is, other teams never lose belief because they don't believe that the Clippers have it in them to just skate home. They don't have it in them to just continuously play the same way they're doing. They start to do the simple things worse in the last, I would say, 3 to 4 minutes of the fourth quarter. Watch them. Generally, they stop moving as much off the ball. They have more turnovers. They start to panic, and as soon as that happens, they get in their own head. And they start to think, all right, we need to just try and do simple things. And the other team, by that point, have already gained 2-3 steps on you, and they've got momentum. Momentum's so important in basketball. It's why I love the sport.
Yes.
And it's why you get phenomenal moments like that, like you mentioned, of UNC versus Kentucky, where momentum swings straight away in favor of Kentucky, but UNC didn't change their game plan. In fact, most teams would have taken a timeout, regrouped, and then went for the shot. No, they used that momentum and the ability to take the other team, catch them off guard, go up and hit a game-winning shot. That's why I love basketball. But the Clippers, it always seems that regardless if they've got 10 double digits lead, they still are susceptible to doing simple, to having simple errors that allow for teams to at least have that tiny little bit of belief. Like you give the Knicks a little bit of belief with the reserves. You give the Kings, a team that you should be putting to bed, belief to come back and push the game. And I think that it's always it's hard to place blame. I also see similarities in world football, so I always will resort to. I think it's a managerial issue because you can put the players out there, you can try to get them to work, but if the players aren't buying into the system, you can keep replacing the players, but the system therefore is flawed. And I think that you don't have the confidence in the manager anymore. So I think that it's a combination of having not enough, I would say, players that are confident enough to step up and be leaders outside of the usual Chris Paul, DeAndre Jordan. But I think that goes along with Doc Rivers. If the Clippers fall flat in their face again this year, why do you not just exactly send Blake off, get rid of Doc Rivers, allow Doc Rivers to leave? I don't want to see that as harsh as that.
Here's the problem too, and look, we can't beat around the bush on this one. The Clippers, aside from when Blake got drafted and Chris Paul came there, they've been relevant in the NBA for 5 years. 5 years. They were completely irrelevant, the worst franchise in American sports for almost their entire existence. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to beat a dead horse on the Clippers in this instance, but it is very Clippers that if the case were to be that they lose in the second round of the playoffs, and I cannot find a possible way that the Clippers beat the Rockets, Spurs, or Warriors in a series. All three of those teams are infinitely better. Now on paper, you can make the argument, well, Chris Paul for James Harden, both premier guards in this league, Blake Griffin, physical presence. No, there's not one player aside from Chris Paul that I would technically take on my team over anything else because the other teams are playing under managers or coaches, as you're kind of alluding to here, or literally pointing out, not even alluding, playing under coaches who do play their system. Mike D'Antoni is never going to go at one point, the Rockets coach, in the middle of the third quarter, let's switch up, play some defensive basketball. We beat teams by scoring 130 points, but let's draw up a play for not James Harden.
Yeah.
Everyone come in, everyone not James Harden. not James Harden.
Trim your beard.
It's worked all year long, but go sit over there, James Harden. We don't need you. You got guys like Steve Kerr and, of course, Greg Popovich, but I think Popovich just thinks, I don't even know how he thinks. He's looking at his play going hey, Tony Parker, remember that one back in 2003, Game 4? Let's run that one. They're not going to see it coming. It's 15 years old. Most of the guys in the league weren't even alive. But Doc doesn't think that way. Doc's a motivator. And the other thing that's big about Doc Rivers is at some point next year, he'll be 10 years removed from his championship.
Yeah.
And at what point do we have to finally come to the conclusion he's just an okay coach with a ring?
So
it's fine. You can be an okay coach with a ring. You're just not on the level of being able to make a difference down the stretch. Maybe he's got it within him, but he's not going to change his ways either. People don't change for the most part. I don't think Doc's going to all of a sudden start going, shit, let's draw up plays for Chris Paul instead of Blake Griffin because I don't know. I don't know what the difference between an X and an O is. So the guy's on offense or defense?
At what point, what do you think the blame has to be going towards? The fact is that, as you mentioned, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, always in the Lakers' shadow, the team in Los Angeles that everyone kind of pitied because they were an embarrassment in comparison to the bigger, badder brother who had all the championships and everything else. At what point do you think they just get comfortable being a competitor?
I think that's where they're at now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like at this point where you're just like, all right, we're not going to win, but we've got some players there to make a run. You never know. Could maybe get into the third, maybe even go to the finals, but we're not really sure that we've got the mentality or the star power or the players to get a championship. So, but we don't need that because we were awful for so long. Let's just bask in the idea that we're a competitor. But I think what happens with fans is that's never going to be good enough because if the Clippers didn't show the potential for it, then why would people wouldn't be happy with it. So the Clippers fans see the potential in that team. They see the potential in the players, and they're like, they see teams like the Rockets go through and go through to the finals and get blown out by the Warriors, and they'll think to themselves, why can't we be that team there? We have the ability. Why are we not the team to get to that stage? So they're never going to be comfortable.
System, man. I think you made the point, and you talked about it earlier in the clip. It's system. You have to buy into the system, and I don't know what Doc's system is.
Yeah.
He does the same thing over and over and over and over again. And unfortunately, when it's right from the get-go, it works, okay? What I'm trying to say is like when the game plan is going well, it sits like that. And when he doesn't have to worry about, it's almost like you'd rather have the Clippers be in a competitive basketball game or maybe down 5 late in the fourth quarter than ever up 20. And that is insanity to think about for anybody. In the history of sports, you've never wanted to be down 5 with a minute left. You want to be up 20 with 5 minutes left. I can't think of a situation where you'd ever want to be down 5 points opposed to up 20, unless you got MJ or Kobe, or maybe Harden, or Kawhi, maybe even Curry or Durant.
None of them are Clippers.
Not Blake. Yeah. In this case, hey, look, man, Dan's been on the hate Blake train he's not even here. I'm pointing to nobody. I'm literally pointing to nobody.
If you can see behind the camera, there's no one there.
But let me give you a statistic before we go. The Clippers, so here's the one I thought was right in my head, and then we'll show you the actual one. I thought the actual number was teams up 18 points with like 4 minutes left in regulation are like 19,002, right? Well, I was close. 6,746 and won.
Whoa.
When leading by at least 18 points in the final 5 minutes, the Clippers are that one. They are 359-1 on this season alone, which makes them the Kansas City Chiefs of basketball. They are frauds. You have to say it. The Clippers are frauds. Dan, I still want tickets to the Spurs game coming up next week, though. So, hey.
Just forget everything we said in the last 6 minutes.
Just don't watch this clip. All right, comment below, like, favorite, subscribe. Am I crazy? Will the Clippers get smashed by any combination of the Rockets, Warriors, or Spurs? I know they can beat the Jazz. They just did that, but if they played the Kings in a 5-game series, they'd lose.